today's episode of the Osasu Show. Today we are live at the 71st United Nations General Assembly in New York, New York. Today we'll be covering the conferences on the large movement of refugees around the world, as well as the Sustainable Development Goals targeted to be achieved by 2030. We will not be doing any interviews, however, we'll get the opportunity to ask Mr. President Buhari a couple of questions during the press briefing. So stay tuned for these exclusive conferences, and we'll be right back with the Osasu Show.
On behalf of the General Assembly, I have the honor to welcome to the United Nations His Excellency Muhammadu Buhari, President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and to invite him to address the Assembly.
The President of the General Assembly, His Excellency Mr. Peter Thompson, the Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. President, let me, on behalf of the government and people of Nigeria, congratulate you on your well-deserved election as the President of the 71st General Assembly. I assure you of Nigeria's support in steering the affairs of the General Assembly in the next 1 year. I take the opportunity to also express my appreciation to your predecessor, Mr. Thomas Kelthoff. Last year, I presented my first address to the General Assembly after my assumption of office as President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Indeed, it was a remarkable year, which not only celebrated the gains of the Millennium Development Goals, but also witnessed the adoption of 2030 Agenda on Sustainable Development. We must remain committed to taking bold steps to transform our world. The Sustainable Development Goals underscore the imperative for our collective will towards finding enduring and sustainable solutions to addressing global disparities. Nigeria, as a developing country, has been adversely affected by the global economic downturn. We are, however, undeterred and have embarked on a wide range of reforms in our efforts to diversify our economy and shift emphasis to mining, agriculture, industrialization, manufacture development, and the creation of the enabling environment for foreign direct investment. We are taking measures to reduce the cost of governance and increase the expenditure on infrastructure and ensure environmental best practices. Fighting corruption remains a cardinal pillar of our administration. Corruption freezes development, thereby undermining the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. I am pleased that our efforts in fighting corruption are yielding positive results, including significant stolen asset recoveries. Nigeria remains committed to extradite industries, transparency initiative, a global coalition which promotes transparency and accountability in the management of revenues from the oil, gas, and solid mineral sectors. The world took a giant step in Paris towards addressing the challenges of climate change. Nigeria is proud to have been part of the process leading to the adoption of the Paris Agreement in December 2015 at the 21st meeting of the Conference of Parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. COP21 marked a watershed in the global community's commitment to address climate change, and we will continue in our determined efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. In furtherance of our commitment to environmental sustainability, Nigeria has launched the clean-up of Ogoni land in Nigeria's Niger Delta. With the global increase in the spate of terrorist attacks, there is now more than ever before international consensus and greater willingness to collaborate in combating this threat. Nigeria has made remarkable progress in our resolve to defeat Boko Haram, whose capacity to launch orchestrated attacks as a formed group has been severely degraded. In the last few months, their operations have been limited to sporadic use of improvised explosive devices against soft targets. Nigeria has continued to combat terrorism based on the established rules of engagement and in conformity with international best practices. Let me conclude by reaffirming Nigeria's abiding faith in the United Nations and in her capacity to support member states to deliver on the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. I thank you.
Mr. President, Mr. Secretary General, fellow delegates, ladies and gentlemen, as I address this hall as President for the final time, let me recount the progress that we've made these last 8 years. From the depths of the greatest financial crisis of our time, we coordinated our response to avoid further catastrophe and return the global economy to growth. We've taken away terrorist safe havens, strengthened the non-proliferation regime, resolved the Iranian nuclear issue through diplomacy. We opened relations with Cuba, helped Colombia end Latin America's longest war. And we welcome a democratically elected leader of Myanmar to this assembly. Our assistance is helping people feed themselves, care for the sick, power communities across Africa, and promote models of development rather than dependence. American businesses have created now 15 million new jobs. After the recession, the top 1% of Americans were capturing more than 90% of income growth, but today that's down to about half. Last year, poverty in this country fell at the fastest rate in nearly 50 years. And with further investment in infrastructure and early childhood education and basic research, I'm confident that such progress will continue. So just as I've pursued these measures here at home, so has the United States worked with many nations to curb the excesses of capitalism, not to punish wealth, but to prevent repeated crises that can destroy it. Our nation began with a promise of freedom that applied only to the few, but because of our democratic Constitution, because of our Bill of Rights, because of our ideals, ordinary people were able to organize and march and protest, and ultimately those ideals won out. We can only eliminate extreme poverty if the sustainable development goals that we have set are more than words on paper. Human ingenuity now gives us the capacity to feed the hungry and give all of our children, including our girls, the education that is the foundation for opportunity in our world. If Russia continues to interfere in the affairs of its neighbors, it may be popular at home, it may fuel nationalist fervor for a time, but over time it is also going to diminish its stature and make its borders less secure. Because in the eyes of innocent men and women and children who, through no fault of their own, have had to flee everything that they know, everything that they love, we have to have the empathy to see ourselves. We have to imagine what it would be like for our family, for our children. We must reject any forms of fundamentalism or racism or a belief in ethnic superiority that makes our traditional identities irreconcilable with modernity. And our international community must continue to work with those who seek to build rather than to destroy. And there is a military component to that. It means being united and relentless in destroying networks like ISIL, which show no respect for human life. But it also means that in a place like Syria, where there's no ultimate military victory to be won, we're going to have to pursue the hard work of diplomacy that aims to stop the violence and deliver aid to those in need and support those who pursue a political settlement and can see those who are not like themselves as worthy of dignity and respect. I can best look after my own daughters by making sure that my actions seek what is right for all people and all children and your daughters and your sons. This is what I believe, that all of us can be co-workers with God. And our leadership and our governments and this United Nations should reflect this irreducible truth. Thank you very much.
It is a great honor for me to address this General Assembly for the first time, and to do so as Prime Minister of a country that has always been a proud and proactive member at the very heart of this United Nations. This United Nations was formed because leaders across the world knew that they could only deliver security for their citizens at home if they could cooperate as a community of nations to deliver security across the globe. The UK will be a confident, strong and dependable partner internationally, true to the universal values that we share together. We will continue to champion the rights of women and girls, making sure that all girls get the education they deserve, and tackling horrific abuses such as female genital mutilation and the use of sexual violence in conflict. We will continue to be a steadfast, permanent member of the Security Council, meeting our NATO commitment to spend 2% of GDP on defence, and making a leading contribution to UN peacekeeping efforts. We will continue to play our part in the international effort against climate change. And in a demonstration of our commitment to the agreement reached in Paris, the UK will start its domestic procedures to enable ratification of the Paris Agreement and complete these before the end of the year. In the last 5 years, the UK has invested over $9 billion in humanitarian assistance, saving millions of lives every year. The London Syria Conference in February raised $12 billion in pledges, the largest amount ever raised in one day in response to a humanitarian crisis. And that money is being used to combine both urgent humanitarian assistance and vital economic development. We need a better overall approach to managing economic migration, which recognises that all countries have the right to control their borders, and that we must all commit to accepting the return of our own nationals when they have no right to remain elsewhere. By ensuring a managed and controlled international migration response, and at the same time investing to tackle the underlying drivers of displacement and migration at source, we can reject isolationism and xenophobia, achieving better outcomes for all of our citizens, and particularly for the most vulnerable. Yet nearly 70 years on, we are presented with a new form of slavery, modern slavery. Organised crime groups who are largely behind this modern slavery lure, dupe and force innocent men, women and children into extreme forms of exploitation. Trafficked and sold across borders, victims are forced into living the kind of inhumane existence that is almost too much for our imagination. So we need our law enforcement agencies to work together, with joint investigation teams working across multiple countries. Victims will only find freedom if we cultivate a radically new, global and coordinated approach to defeat this vile crime. And let us work together to build a safer, more prosperous and more humane world for generations to come.
It's an honor to be with you today. And it's wonderful to be here in the great city of New York. Once again, this week, New Yorkers showed us how to be resilient and resolute in the face of violent extremism. On behalf of everybody in this room, let me say directly to the people of New York, you are a model to the world, and we thank you. Exactly 1 year ago, Canada was in the middle of a long and closely fought election campaign. 78 days on the road, and I can assure you, in Canada, there are 78 days worth of roads. It is the responsibility of a leader to spend time with the people they were elected to serve. If you want the real stories, you have to go where people live. Coffee shops and church basements, mosques and synagogues, farmers markets, public parks. It was in places like that that I got the best sense of what Canadians were thinking and how they were doing. I heard from young Canadians who were frustrated, who told me that they couldn't get a job because they don't have work experience, and they can't get work experience because they don't have a job. I heard from women and girls who still face inequality in the workplace and violence just because they are women, even in a progressive country like Canada. To allay people's anxiety, we need to create economic growth that is broadly shared, because a fair and successful world is a peaceful one. In recent months, Canadians have opened their hearts and their arms to families fleeing the ongoing conflict in Syria. And from the moment they arrived, those 31,000 refugees were welcomed not as burdens, but as neighbors and friends, as new Canadians. Do you want to know where the Syrian middle class is? Well, they're living in refugee camps in Turkey, Lebanon, and Jordan. They're moving across Europe looking for a place to set down roots, to get their kids back into school, to find steady work, and to become productive citizens. Refugee camps are teeming with Syria's middle class. Doctors and lawyers, teachers and entrepreneurs. They're well educated, they work hard, they care about their families, they want a better life, a safer and more secure future for their kids, as we all do. So when I say that I hope that Syrian refugees that we welcomed will be soon able to join our middle class, I'm confident that we can make that happen, and we'll do it by offering them the same things we offer to all our citizens: a real and fair chance at success for everyone.
We are determined to build an economy which works for everyone, not only for the richest 1%, so that each and every person can benefit from economic growth. And we are going to refuse to give in to pressure to change our profound innermost values to win easy votes. People in the world expect more from us, and we expect more of ourselves.
In the end, my friends, there is a choice to be made. Strong, diverse, resilient countries like Canada didn't happen by accident, and they won't continue without effort. Every single day, we need to choose hope over fear, diversity over division. Fear has never created a single job or fed a single family. And those who exploit it will never solve the problems that have created such anxiety. Our citizens, the nearly 7.5 billion people we collectively serve, are better than the cynics and pessimists think they are. People want their problems solved, not exploited. Listen, Canada is a modest country. We know we can't solve these problems alone. We know we need to do this all together. We know it will be hard work. But we're Canadian, and we're here to help.
Hi there, meet Ekaite from Ekaite Services. Ekaite is your very own virtual personal assistant who you can assign a wide range of tasks to via WhatsApp. What kind of tasks? Well, Ekaite can do all your grocery shopping, assist you with travel arrangements, take care of your laundry and dry cleaning, deliver food from your favorite restaurant right to your doorstep, arrange for diesel to be sent to your home or office, provide professional drivers when needed. Ekaite can also arrange reliable house cleaners for your home, send gifts to your loved ones on your behalf. Too lazy to cook? Ekaite can arrange a chef to prepare you a meal right in your home. These are just a few of the things Ekaite can do for you. Let the most efficient personal assistant in Nigeria help you have a more productive life. Add Ekaite on WhatsApp now on 0908 082 1111. Find out more on www.ekaiteservices.com.
Mr. President, 2.5 million children are suffering from acute malnutrition in the north. So you just talked about over $300 billion being sent to the Lake Chad Basin. 188 million, okay, for humanitarian aid. And from CODE, which is Connected Development, has reported that over 50 billion naira has been misallocated from the humanitarian aids that have been sent there. What is your administration doing to correct this?
Well, we have Presidential Committee on Northeast, led by a former general, reputed for integrity. His headquarters is situated in the presidency. He has got some staff, and there is a legal instrument developed on how that money is spent. So whoever has got any money to contribute or food items will go and make a presentation. We have a list of infrastructure destroyed, especially educational infrastructure, health infrastructure. People will appear before the committee. Presentation will be made, and then it's up to them to go and choose what they will do. We deliberately this time didn't ask for money. Now even the money now offered by the United States and Britain, we will ask those that are handling the money to appear before this committee, identify what should be done, and then give them the people to go along with them to get the type of help they wanted to do.
That's it for today's episode of the Osasu Show. We hope you enjoyed it and you learned something new about the United Nations Global Goals for Sustainable Development and how it's applicable to you and your respective countries. So Tosas, until next time, take very good care of yourself. I'll see you same time, not the same place, back in our studios in Abuja next week. And until then, God bless you.